Hello, I'm David Hepworth. Thanks for clicking this word in your ear. The latest of hundreds of chats Mark, Ellen and I have had over recent years, some between ourselves and others with musicians, authors, comedians and other people we like. If you'd like to help make sure they continue, you might consider being a Patreon supporter by visiting patreon.com/wordinyourear, or just by liking or subscribing in whatever way you prefer. On with the show.
Word down your way. You're such a lovely audience.
Welcome to another edition of Word Down Your Way, where life has been instantly improved by the arrival of Clare Grogan. Clare, it's lovely to see you.
Good morning. Hello.
And where are you? You're at home in London, presumably.
Yeah, I'm at home in London. I'm in my bedroom. And yeah, as I said, angling this the camera so you can't see all the mess.
Whereas you
were telling us just now that you're a bit worried about what to wear in our presence.
Yeah,
go on.
I got up and I thought, right, what am I going to wear? And because for things like this, I always like to. Everything I do, I like to make a little bit of a statement. You know, you boys can just roll out of bed, and
it's so obvious.
Absolutely, as you can see. Go on.
Got us rumbling.
I have to think about it just for a nanosecond, and I had no idea about it. Pulled open the first drawer, opened in my room. My CBGB t-shirt was there, and I literally probably haven't put this on in about 10 years. So I feel like it's fate.
That's perfect.
Brilliant.
It's perfect. You posted a picture, I think it may have been on Instagram or something the other day.
Yeah.
I think you were preparing to go on stage. I don't know where you were. It's a fabulous frock, There she was, preparing to go on stage. And I couldn't resist making the comment, oh, you could have made an effort.
Yes, I noted it.
But
I have to tell you something, David.
Go on.
My relationship with you is slightly been marred by something.
What's that?
Oh.
Go on.
An old review.
Oh, my God. Have you found an old review? Oh,
was it from Smash Hits?
Oh, good grief. Really?
Yes. I was hurt.
I'm sure you can quote every word of it.
God,
so please
funny.
do.
I was like, I always thought you always liked me.
Oh,
Claire.
Was it in Smash Hits?
I think it was.
It would be in Smash Hits. Go on.
Bizarrely, it was for the Bite album. And just because I'm revisiting that at the moment for this tour. And I thought, gosh, that's my favourite alternative album. And David Hepworth thought it was just...
Who stars?
Oh, dear God.
Avoid.
It's
could do better.
It's kind of funny, you write these reviews and, you're kind of under the cosh, you've got to write about 10 or whatever. And you start to resent things just because you have to, it's a lot of work, And then you completely forget about them. But the artist never, ever forgets. Even when they talk about, I never read reviews. Strangely enough,
they read that one and they can remember it. But it's
40 years later.
It's the same for us. Bad reviews of us on telly or whatever. I can still remember them. I still wake in the middle of the night in a fetal position. Did I really do that?
But here's a funny thing. Sorry, we'll get into the live thing in a moment. This is interesting to talk about. Is because print has largely disappeared, the last things that appeared in print, when people find old magazines, they really pore over them like they're magical objects from a vanished universe. And people quote things that appeared in print in a way that they never quote things that somebody said on the internet. Somebody wrote in The Guardian and it appeared on the internet 10 years ago. Nobody said anything about it at all.
No, it's true.
If it appeared on paper...
It's chiseled like a tablet of stone, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, even on social media, because quite often people will send me stuff from back in the day and I'll retweet it. And I'm always surprised at just how big a reaction it gets.
Just because it's old print. It's ink and paper, isn't it?
And I think it triggers a memory for people as well.
Yeah.
Obviously, like, oh, I remember I read that first time round. That bite was rubbish.
Well,
look, we're going to ask you about going back to live performance. Yeah,
yes.
And because you're about to go on tour in the summer doing the Rewind Festival, you've got the Altered Images dates. But can you remember the first shows that you ever saw? I mean, this can include panto, it can include circus, or it's just a rock and roll band.
Well, I mean, I looking back at the time, I didn't really appreciate it, but certainly when I look back at it, I came from a family who were very, very invested in going to see live performance. I mean, I can remember my dad talking about seeing Frank Sinatra in Glasgow and stuff. Yeah. You know, because all the big names came to Glasgow, so it was definitely. And, you know, my great aunt Winnie was in the Opera Society and she would take us to the opera. And, you know, so it was always in the background. But, you know, for me, it was always going to be about pop music and rock and roll. And some of the first best live performances I ever saw were by my big sister Margaret, who would come home from a gig at the Greens Playhouse of David Bowie, Roxy Music, Leo Sayer, and come and reenact the whole thing for me.
Oh, wonderful.
Because I was too young to go. So it was my sister Margaret that took me to my first ever gig, and it was the Bay City Rollers.
Oh, nice.
Jang-a-lang.
Can you remember what you were wearing?
How old were you and what were you wearing? And we want to know all the details.
Yeah, well, I was, I think, 13, and I didn't have any of the tartan gear because my mum and dad would never have allowed that. And but I remember I had my first pair of sort of platform clogs.
Lovely.
With a cork, you know, around them. And I wore one of my sister's outfits, which was like big time when I got to borrow some of their clothes. And off Margaret and I went to see, and we were in the very, I'm not kidding, we were in the very back row of the Gods.
Was this the
in the Greens, the Apollo in Greens Playhouse. I mean, they were like tiny. It was before big screens.
No,
so there was just like these little micro people in the distance. But it was really great fun, and you know, I really, really loved it. And then just around that same time, there was, you know, I was crossing over into being allowed to do things. And a lot of the really great, I think the next gig I saw after that was Ian Dury and the Blockheads.
Oh, right.
And the Stranglers. And there
that's a bit of a, sorry, just to interrupt. It's a bit of a shift from the Bay City Rollers to Ian Dury and the Blockheads.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it happened so quickly, though, for me. You know, a lot of the time I was following my sister's taste in music, and you know, just, you know how you're just very influenced by who you're hanging out with at that age. And then suddenly I thought, I really love this. You know, I was discovering things for myself. And I was fortunate enough to have a wee group of friends who were doing the same thing at the same time. And we would go off. And, you know, a lot of the, early shows that I went to, you know, all of Altered Images would have been there as well, but with their friends, you know. So we had this really shared thing about being passionate about this new wave of music. And I'll never forget that. And then Glasgow City Council banned punk bands playing in Glasgow. So for a while, I couldn't remember why we'd all...
What had caused that? Was there some specific incident?
I think just the over-enthusiasm, I'd like to call it.
Yeah.
That sometimes the ripping of the seats out in venues and throwing them that kind of thing. But yeah, just all in the name of good fun. But they weren't having it. I mean, I think it was during the sort of the Thatcher era as well. I mean, Glasgow was a bubbling pot of, you know, madness at that point. So we would, so madness in their early days. The whole two-tone tour, which was amazing. But we started going to gigs in Paisley, which is like a little town just outside of Glasgow. And there was a place called the Bungalow Bar, and I saw Echo and the Bunnymen, the Psychedelic Furs. I mean, it was a great venue, and Altered Images eventually played there as well. So, yeah, it was great.
So it was presumably in those days, you would go along and pretty much pay on the door, wouldn't you? You know what I mean? It wouldn't be a booking job or anything like that, would it? Or would it?
I think you had to collect your tickets first. That was always like the big arrangement, right? Who is going to go to the box office and buy the tickets, and collect them? So you definitely had something in your hand. Although I think that's for the bigger shows. Somewhere like the Bungalow Bar, you probably did, because the Bungalow Bar wasn't a big venue. It was, probably held about 400. So it was a great place to see a lot of these bands.
But it's also, if you think back to those days, you were about to talk about the Two-Tone Tour. I saw the Two-Tone Tour, and I remember that there was almost the possibility that violence could break out anywhere. You know what I mean? And I think it was partly to do with the fact that people just turned up. They were paying on the door very often. It was like football at the same time. It was dominated by 17-year-old boys rather than middle-aged men with credit cards as it is nowadays, isn't it? Different
Regulars gigs were always very lively, weren't they?
Yeah. I mean, I remember being genuinely scared at a lot of gigs.
Yeah.
And, I look back now and the thought of my daughter Ellie being in those circumstances horrifies me. But it's even worse when you're on the stage and they're throwing things at you.
So when you're on the stage, that's quite interesting. Well, you won't have had much experience of, not violence, whatever, but when you're on stage, you're sober and you can see what's going on, can't you?
Yeah.
Do you have experience of that, noticing, there's trouble about to happen over there by that door kind of thing?
I mean, it happened to me actually very recently.
Go on.
I was playing in a festival in Scotland. And, it was all very civilised. I mean, it was on a golf course. And then when we arrived, because I was headlining, and the organiser said, we have a bit of an issue because this was 6 o'clock at night and we were on at 9. We have completely run out of alcohol.
Oh, my God.
Oh, God. There's going to be a riot.
Well, there was.
Really? It's a beer riot.
Did you have to say anything about it on stage? Did you attempt to control it or get involved in any way?
Well, I had a police presence with me at all times, and I kept on thinking, should we maybe just abandon this? But the show must go on. But I was on stage literally witnessing people up the back brawling.
Oh, God.
It took me back to the Middlesbrough Rock Garden. Did you ever go to the Middlesbrough Rock Garden?
I don't think I ever did. Go on, tell us about it.
Well, it was completely notorious, and Altered Images played it in its early days, and literally, you knew you weren't under the threat of a chair hitting you in the face because everything was screwed down, tables, chairs. So that was okay. But, I mean, people went there to have a riot. A lot of it was good fun. I mean, when I joke about it being just like a little over-enthusiastic, a lot of it came from over-enthusiasm that, as you guys said, it can suddenly turn, And, I mean, I had to be sneaked out the back door in the end. And, sometimes when I look at it, I do think, God, I was really vulnerable because there wasn't an awful lot of girls doing those gigs.
No, sure.
No, there weren't. And you probably didn't have any security.
No. I had Jerry, our manager, and, Ginge, our roadie, fighting people off.
Don't come near me, I've got Ginge with me.
The character out the Beano.
Yeah. Oh, God.
It was, I mean, honestly, I can't get over it when I look back at it. It makes me laugh, but it makes me think, gosh, Claire, you were courageous.
Yeah, it's the recklessness, the courageousness.
Now
of you,
there'll be a lawsuit. The band would sue the venue for putting them in a difficult situation.
God.
Yeah.
So you were tough.
But I mean, that did disappear quite quickly for us. I mean, I think that was all on the back of, I mean, I can remember, just being at the side of the stage, watching Susie on stage, because we opened for the Banshees quite a lot. And just, I mean, at that point, there was still a lot of spitting. Oh my goodness, and what a relief that died down, But they were, it was about feeling really alive for young people, these shows. I mean, nothing was passive. There was no getting a camera phone out with a light and swaying around.
No, absolutely.
None of that was.
There was none of that. It was a full-scale rally quite a lot.
So without making this conversation feel like, kind of, oh, you must have seen some changes. I remember when it was all fields around here. So you've gone... See, what was it like being spat at? Seriously. I mean, did you get angry? Can you remember it?
I actually found it really distressing. I really
horrible.
Did. You're on stage and you're concentrating a little bit on the songs and the rest of it on trying to avoid being gobbed on,
Oh, God. Dodging the phlegm. Yeah. Oh, it's appalling.
Yeah, whereas nowadays you're dealing with, as you say, a sea of little blue screens. Which must be, I mean, it's less distressing, but it must be odd.
I think so. And, it's not something that bothers me. I know, like, a lot of artists get quite agitated by it. But I think when you go to a gig, it's up to you how you enjoy it and what, you want from it, and what to take away from it. So, I mean, I think when I go to shows, I might take a couple of photos, but that's it. I can't really see the point of watching it all through a camera.
But they're never going to. I mean, also the thing that gets me is they're never going to watch it when they go home, are they?
I know.
Are they?
Are they? Yeah. Never. I mean, I don't know.
The problem is that people won't believe you unless you somehow have a photograph. So I went to see Altered Images. You expect to see a picture to back that up somehow, which is absurd.
Yeah, I guess it's. I mean, I think for me, what's so extraordinary is that we still have an audience.
So is it the same audience? Tell us about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think what's been really lovely is, at first I think it was very much, my generation of people wanting to see the shows, everyone that grew up around that same time. And what's really become more and more obvious to me is young people love 80s music. I mean, they just do. Even when Ellie has her friends round, there'll be a point in the evening where they start listening to, Kim Wilde and, or whoever. I mean, it's just extraordinary to me. So there's quite a few young people come to the shows. Also, I think parents bring their kids. Because a lot of these festivals that I do are big family events. So the audience is genuinely very mixed.
Right. But it's like I was looking at one of the Rewind package running orders, and it's like looking through an old copy of Smash It, isn't it? It's Midge Ure, Nik Kershaw, Bad Manners, Living in a Box, Shack Attack, Kim Wilde, and Altered Images. I mean, it's wonderful.
Poster on the back page.
That's right. Yeah. Free song lyrics here. And a little personal file. I mean, that must be wonderful. I mean, you probably saw some of those people, I don't know, at Top of the Pops or whatever it was back in the day. So is there now, presumably there's no feeling of competition anymore? You're just one kind of big gang, really, aren't you?
It is. I mean, it's so... I mean, I was in Dublin recently for Rewind, and we did a big show. I mean, the audience were incredible. It was just... But my favourite moments are things like when we all get on, like in transport from like the hotel to the gig, because we all go in a little bus together. It's just like
it's a cartoon. This is the 80s in one bus.
Do you know what this is like? Do you know what this is like, Mark? Back in sort of 1983 or whatever, we might well have devised this as a potential funny story for the Smash Hits yearbook.
Yeah, we would.
Can you imagine in the future all these people getting on a bus, all got children and in some cases grandchildren, and they're still going along. We would have thought, what a corking idea that is. Yeah. Well, it's true. It's turned out to be true.
It would have been a running cartoon, wouldn't it? The pop bus, Because that's what Smash Hits pretended, really, that everybody was on this.
Was on a bus.
We're all pals and we all know each other and, that's hilarious.
So, at any point I could be in a bus with, like, Go West, Heaven 17, Carol Decker. I mean, it is fun, and all of us, I think, are really, really enjoying this moment.
Right.
Because otherwise, what's the point? You know,
No, you're quite right.
Absolutely delicious to walk onto that stage. And literally 10,000 people singing your songs back at you. And it does make me teary sometimes. It really does. Just to have this amazing collective shared moment. And you know that everyone out in that audience has been through their shit. And we all come back together on those Saturdays in a field somewhere and we go, we're okay. You know?
Yeah. We've gone back to a happy place. That's right, yeah. But it's presumably like a kind of 60s package tour that you get, how long do you get each 4 or 5 numbers or something? I mean, it can't be...
It kind of depends. I'm doing quite a lot of Let's Rock shows this summer as well. So I've got 30 minutes with them. Rewind, I do 15, 20 minutes. So, you know, I'm always going to do I Could Be Happy, Don't Talk to Me About Love, Bring Me Closer, See Those Eyes, all the hits, Happy Birthday.
Happy Birthday.
Yeah. But I always also been sneaking in Mascara Streaks from my latest album.
Right.
Because I kind of think,
yeah,
you know, I can do what I like.
Do you announce that that's a new song?
Yeah.
That's the thing. It's always so funny when people are on stage and go, we're going to do a new one now. And there's a kind of shuffling sound and you just see people going off to buy a hamburger.
Well, the thing is, I always preempt it with, this is your chance to go to the bar and get a drink if you want, because I'm going to do a new song from my album.
That's good. Oh, that's very
apologetic.
Clever. That's the way to do it.
I want
But that guilt trips them into staying and watching.
Right, that's double bluff. I want to hear more about your daughter and her mates and how they respond to, you know, do they ever look at old YouTube clips of you on Top of the Pops or whatever and go, didn't your mum used to be Clare Grogan? Do you get any of that kind of thing?
I do. And I think that, I mean, I suppose it's natural to a certain extent. And what's interesting about Ellie is, because people say to me, is she super embarrassed about it? And what's really lovely about Ellie is she's not. I mean, I embarrass her in Waitrose or whatever, but when she sees those clips, she's like, Mum. And I go, I know. And then she comes to quite a lot of the shows, Ellie, and we do really well. You met her, actually, because she came
I met her.
Yeah, she did my merch at
Holland Park.
Yeah. So I noticed she's great in merch. I always do well when Ellie's on merch because she's like, I'm her daughter.
Oh, that's great.
Family business.
Yes.
Absolutely. Quite right.
So that's really funny. But, you know, it's just become it's become a bigger part of my life than I ever expected. And I didn't see it coming. I really didn't. And I say this all the time. The revival has gone on longer than the decade itself.
Well, yeah, I'm sure that's the case with a load of people, isn't it?
Yeah.
So there was there was alternate images, and then there was a period where you were acting and doing this and that.
Yeah.
And then kind of alternate images came back. Roughly when?
Well, I think the first time I got asked back to do it was 2004 for a Here and Now tour with Kim Wilde and Human League. And I really, you know, I mean, I've talked about this a lot. I really did have to have my arm twisted because I thought, how can I seriously get on a stage in my 40s and sing Happy Birthday? And here I am at 62.
So did it instantly feel okay to be doing it then?
Yeah.
Because that was a toe in the water, wasn't it, for the 80s revival, that 2004?
Yeah,
that was the first time it kind of was tried out.
And my prime motivation at that point was I'd always wanted to come out of a birthday cake. Because one of my favourite films is How to Murder Your Wife. Jack Lemmon, is that what it's called?
Yeah.
And he meets his wife because she jumps out of a birthday cake. So I've always wanted to do that. So I started every show by coming out of a beautiful cake that was made for me. And I really remember, and I've spoken about this a lot as well, sitting inside that cake, being wheeled on stage in Newcastle, absolutely terrified because I had no idea how it was going to go. I was literally shaking inside a big cake, thinking, I'm not coming out.
Yeah. And thinking, what if you did come out and nobody was bothered? It would just be immensely embarrassing. Hello! Oh, dear, oh, dear.
That's fantastic.
The thing is, as I was being wheeled on, I could hear the whole audience singing Happy Birthday.
Oh, that's all right.
Oh, that's so nice.
I was just like, I'm going to be okay.
Yeah, I'm going to be okay.
And on that tour, I'd quite often find a crew member inside the cake just having a quiet moment. just borrowing it for a quiet moment. I love that.
You miss it when you're not. I mean, that feeling you're talking about going out, and everybody says this. I interviewed Keith Richards once, and he said there was absolutely the main thing in his life was the sound of playing an opening chord to Honky Tonk Women or whatever, and hearing 80,000 people going mental. He said there was nothing to replace that. Would you miss that when it's not there?
Well, I mean, I don't want to sound... but a lot of these big shows that we do, people, are there 100% to enjoy themselves and make some noise. What's slightly different is when I'm with my own band, who are amazing, and we get to do a lot of shows as well and a lot of different types of festivals. When we play the not so much 80s festivals, just the festivals, it's always like, well, how's this going to go? I mean, we really do brace ourselves a wee bit for it being a bit lukewarm, and it never is. And I've really got over playing everything down in my life, like, oh no, it was rubbish. I'm like, no, I don't know how to describe it, but I treat every show almost like it's my last opportunity to do it. And I don't say that in a sort of gloomy way, but I just feel so grateful that I'm getting to do this, and I never take it for granted. I think the pandemic really stopped us all and made us really reassess things. So, I just love it. And we genuinely go down. I mean, my band are brilliant. We have great fun on stage. We just want to take everyone with us. And most people, you can see some reluctance in corners, but I'm not. No, you're coming with me. Right. You have to come with me. And
so, do you focus on the people? It's quite an interesting question. Any live performer, do you focus on the people that you feel you're not winning over, or do you put all your effort into the people who are already with you, kind of thing?
Well, I think having fun is really contagious. So I'm literally, I create the atmosphere on stage with my own band. I think it's really important, and I think that triggers something within the audience. So if they can see us all having good fun, they want to be, I mean, it's not a us and them situation. We are all in this together, and we are nothing without the audience. Absolutely nothing. So I think it's just really infectious, and I think that it's just watching the ripple effect that sometimes happens. And that is really, really amazing. I love it. I really do.
So presumably also, another thing that's very important that clearly just comes naturally to you is talking to an audience. Whereas a lot of people don't like it, do they?
Yeah, I mean, it's taken me years to get... I mean, I've always done it, though, and it's come from nerves more than anything. I mean, it genuinely has. And now I love talking to the audience. I love being heckled. I love people shouting out questions to me.
What kind of things do they say when they heckle?
I mean, just daft stuff, really. Yeah. It's all really just banter and good fun. It's just a lot of silliness, really. But I would never like to sound like I'm really like flippant about all of it, or I don't know how to describe it. I think because it's all very enthusiastic and good fun, but I genuinely take it quite seriously creating that, because I have to, and I don't think I'd still be getting opportunities. And I don't think you can force fun. I really don't. But I think that for me and my band, when we rehearse, we want to get it absolutely right. We're not casual about it. We're not casual about going on that stage and creating that. We really aren't. And I'm so lucky. And, I have to say, the Rewind band are absolutely amazing. The Let's Rock band are really amazing, because I do quite a lot of stuff with the house bands. And they're all at the top of their game. They're, it's great fun to feel confident with the people around you.
Absolutely, no.
Yeah. And why shouldn't it carry on for decades? I mean, Debbie Harry's still touring. Fantastic.
Well, that's what my husband Stephen says to me quite a lot. He's like, look at Debbie, Clare, and she is such a major inspiration and always will be. But yeah, I mean,
didn't you dress as her at a school competition or something? Was what was it? An alternative, Miss Alternative or something? Am I remembering this right?
Yeah, Miss Alternative. I went to Notre Dame High School for Girls, and they did a sort of beauty pageant with a Miss Alternative angle, and I went in a bin bag.
Fantastic. And won. Very good.
Superb.
What do you do? Are you doing festivals this summer?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So lots of festivals. I mean, for the next 6 weekends in a row, I've got festivals.
Oh, really? And
then I've got a weekend off, and then I've got another. I mean, from now till the end of August, I've pretty much got shows every weekend somewhere.
So how does that work? The festival experience. We know how it works for a customer. You go and you're there for 2 days or whatever. How is it for you doing the festivals? You just got to drive to wherever on the day kind of thing?
I mean, it kind of depends, because sometimes we'll have like one on a Friday and then one on a Saturday, so it'll involve an overnight stay somewhere. But for the most, it's actually really great because we can just jump in a people carrier, go to the show. And what has really changed is there's no kind of backstage scene going on at the festivals.
There isn't, is there?
No. It's just not allowed anymore. So I mean, but all the bands are there and the crew and everything. So I mean, it's always lively. But back in the day, you could bring 20 pals with you.
It was all white picket fences, wasn't it, and bars and all that kind of stuff. That's all gone.
Well, I mean, there's still an element of that in a lot of the festivals, but it's very well controlled. It's like family members only, or you, as I say, you can't bring your 20 best mates.
Do you sit and look at the weather forecast a few days beforehand?
Because
it must be such a concern if it's absolutely bucketing down, and you've got even more onus on you to kind of entertain people. I
mean, it's interesting because you're quite often on stage being lashed by horizontal rain, and when I look out the audience and I see this sea of cagoules.
Yeah.
And I think, if you can stand this, I can stand it.
So you're in a ball gown.
Yeah.
And they're youth hosteling out there, basically.
Yeah. So I mean, it's
British. It's very British.
I mean, honestly, I did a show last summer. I can't remember what it was, a festival with my own band, and they lost power for 2 hours.
Oh, God.
Completely because of the electrical storm. It was one of the smaller festivals, which sadly a lot of them are disappearing at the moment, but I'm sure they'll come back. But we didn't know whether we were going to make it on stage or not. And then finally we got the safety all clear to do it. But I was amazed the audience had stayed. It's funny. But it's great fun, but it's not the big leg for, well, I mean, I suppose it's different if you're, it depends if you're headlining or, I'm quite often in the middle of the bill, which really suits me. And I'm not just saying that. I really like
less pressure.
Yeah. And also everyone's just, still in a good place. And
yes, they're not overtired like children who've been up too late, are they?
You go on last, people could have burnt out earlier on when Nik Kershaw came on or whatever, and they've peaked.
No, it's true.
So it's a nice thing, and I love it. And I'm sure, next year I'm really hoping to do some dates in America. So we're trying to put that together. which would be really exciting. I'm also hoping to do some acting again next year, because it's funny, after the pandemic, when everything came back, when the pandemic happened, I was actually in a play. You
were doing Barefoot in the Park, weren't you? Yeah. I remember.
Yeah, I was doing Barefoot in the Park, which was like my dream come true. Okay. And, you know, it's funny just how the way things pan out, because I think, you know, if that had all gone ahead, I'd have been in a bit of an acting role, because that's what happens. I just go into waves of doing lots of acting and lots of singing. But the band thing is kind of taken over since I released Mascara Streets, because the album did really well.
Right.
So it has created this whole new demand again.
So then you're touring. So you're doing the festival summer.
Yeah.
But you're touring in October.
Yes.
So go on.
Yeah. So I've got I'm rubbish at this self-promotional thing, but the tour starts in Brighton on October the 19th, and we go all the way through to the 3rd of November, playing really nice little venues, you know, sort of 400, 500, and I love that. And we're going to perform the whole of Bite live, because we did that last October in London.
And don't take any notice of what I may have said about it.
Dave Hepworth will be down the marsh.
You won't find yourself on the guest list, David.
Actually, you should use Dave's review in the promotional banners. You know, on tour, blah blah at the bottom. Rubbish. D. Hepworth, smash hits.
he couldn't stop it coming back.
I've always thought of us as being friends. It was quite the shock when I read it a year ago.
He's kept very quiet. I didn't know about it.
I've written a lot of reviews, Claire.
Every day he thinks, I hope she won't find out.
There we remember it at all. Yeah. Anyway.
It's so funny. But yeah, so we did it because it was the 40th anniversary of Bite. And I just said to my manager, Simon Watson, who's so lovely, who manages Belinda Carlisle in the Human League as well. And I said, I'd love to just do this as a one-off thing. So we put it together. And it went down so well. It was like, I can't have put myself through all this effort for just one show, because those songs are, the key range is massive, you know. And all joking aside, I had to do some serious vocal coaching stuff to get me to those notes again, because I was determined not to change the key. Mm-hmm. I thought, I'm not doing it. I'm not bringing them down. I set myself that challenge. And that's the kind of nutty person I am, you know. I just think, no, if I'm going to do this the way I did it 40 years ago, I have to be absolutely faithful to that. So I pulled it off. And so the first half of the show is playing Bite, because Bite is only 37 minutes long.
Right,
thought, 36 minutes too long, D. Hepworth. Sorry, I won't let this lie.
So we've created so in the first half of the show we do Bite, and then in the second half of the show we play all the old Images favourites, and yeah, it works really well. So we're going to be doing that all around the country.
Right, okay.
October, in November.
So that's October into November. Well, you know, as we used to say on the telly, good luck with the tour.
Thank you.
Claire, it's been lovely to talk to you, as ever. And
very entertaining.
Always. Absolutely, always. Thank you so much for your support.
Not at all. It's been brilliant.
Word down your way. You're such a lovely audience.